So far in this deep dive, we've seen how women are validated for leaving their husbands while men are left behind as collateral damage, and how political and policy and even cultural rhetoric keep men invisible in the conversation about divorce. But those narratives, they don't just live in speeches or in campaign slogans. They actually play out live in courtrooms, obscure courtrooms, every day across the country. And the people most rewarded by that imbalance are the ones hired to represent you. Attorneys are supposed to guide families toward resolution, but the business model of family law thrives on conflict, not closure. That's why we return next here in part 5 of this deep dive into the divorce industrial complex. So family law attorneys are supposed to resolve disputes, but the system rewards them most when conflicts drag on. Every billable hour, every motion filed, every hearing scheduled turns human pain into profit. The longer families remain stuck in the system, the more money attorneys make. Actually, I don't have this written down, but let me just say this. A great term that I love to, that I heard quite a while ago, and I totally agree with, is you can lose on your own, gentlemen. You do not have to pay $10 or $100,000 or $200,000 in court to lose. You can do that all by yourself. Anyway, that just came to mind. Didn't have that written down, so let's jump back into the script. Psychologically, this leaves men who already face bias in custody and financial outcomes, not just fighting for their children, but also trapped in this machine that feeds on their conflict. Let's talk a little bit about incentive structures, right? These sit at the heart of the problem. Most attorneys bill by the hour, which means that they profit from complexity and delay rather than resolution. Just a few years ago, a 2022 study in, the Family Court Review noted that cases involving custody or support disputes often extended for years, generating tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees per parent, even when outcomes could have been resolved faster with mediation. One of the most lucrative parts of this system is custody battles as cash cows. Again, some of you know exactly what I'm talking about, and if this is news to you, I'm sorry to be the one to break it to you. Disputes over children provide open-ended opportunities for litigation because the standard of the, I hate this term, best interest of the child is so vague. But seriously, what qualifies as best? More time with mom? More stability through fewer transactions or transitions? Higher financial support? It's never been empirically defined, I don't believe. Because there is no universally agreed definition. Attorneys can frame endless arguments requiring more hearings, more experts, demanding more money. According to even the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers a few years ago in 2021, custody disputes account for the highest fees in family court cases, often surpassing $40,000 per parent when contested. I mean, hell, that's more than most people or half the nation makes in an entire year. Some parents are paying that each. They're paying somebody's entire annual salary simply through custody disputes. So men who are already at a disadvantage in custody awards often pour resources into fights that they are statistically less likely to win, deepening both financial and psychological wounds. The phrase best interest of the child is one of the most weaponized principles in family law. On paper, it's meant to center on children's needs, but in practice, it functions as a blank check for attorneys to construct competing narratives that justify litigation. Fathers who push for more equal custody are often told that they're disrupting stability. While mothers request primary custody, those ones are framed as aligning with the child's best interests. This imbalance is not always overt, but it often creates a predictable psychological toll. Men internalize the idea that wanting to be present fathers is somehow selfish or contrary to their child's needs and best interest. Behind the scenes, lawyers deploy tactics designed to escalate conflict rather than resolve it. These can include anything from discovery overload, such as burying the other party in paperwork. Maybe it's delay strategies like continuing hearings, requesting extensions, or even aggressive negotiation stances that are designed to intimidate rather than compromise. The longer and nastier the fight, the higher the bill. For men and dads, the toll isn't just financial, it's emotional exhaustion, a gnawing sense that no matter how much they spend, they're financing their own defeat. And even though most cases never make it to full trial, settlement versus trial dynamics are another profit center in and of themselves. Attorneys often push cases toward trial preparation, even if the odds of settlement are high, because preparation for trials justifies thousands of dollars in billable work. According to a 2020 survey by Law 360, that's another research journal, fewer than 5% of divorce cases actually reach trial. Yet attorneys report preparing for trial in over 30% of their cases. For clients, that means paying premium prices, by the way, hundreds of dollars an hour. You're lucky to find one for $200, probably way up to maybe $1,000 an hour. Just put that context out there. For clients, that means paying premium prices for proceedings that never happen. And for dads, it means resources that could go to their children are instead sunk into preparing for battles that ended in closed-door deals. This dynamic arises unavoidable ethical concerns. Pretty big ones too, I think. Family law is one of the only areas of practice in which the professional incentive is often directly at odds with client well-being. The American Bar Association has published repeated ethics opinions urging lawyers to avoid unnecessarily prolonging cases, but the lack of structural reform means that the incentive system remains unchanged. Psychologically, this creates what feels like betrayal for men. They walk into a system believing that their lawyer is an ally, only to realize that they're also a product to be milked. Finally, we reach the question of reform possibilities. Solutions have been proposed, from flat fees to mediation first approaches, or even caps on billable hours in custody cases. Some jurisdictions are experimenting. California, for example, has expanded mandatory mediation before certain custody disputes can be escalated to trial. And early data suggests that it does in fact reduce both cost and duration. Yet resistance remains strong because reform means less money for those who currently benefit. Until the incentives change, the divorce industry will continue to prioritize conflict over resolution, leaving families, especially dads, as collateral casualties. As I start to wrap up part 4, let me add that for men, financial strain of prolonged litigation is not just about drained bank accounts. It's about drained identities. Every billed hour and hearing that's delayed, every motion that's filed reinforces the feeling that you are less of a father and more of a wallet. When custody becomes a cash cow for attorneys, men are conditioned to see their role not as protectors or nurturers, but as payers. Psychologically, this produces exhaustion, shame, and oftentimes resignation. I've heard too many of those stories, and it's very sad. And it doesn't even end when the case is over. Once the lawyers are finished profiting, the system itself keeps men on the hook. Custody rulings, child support orders, and state incentive programs ensure that even after the courtroom battles stop, the financial machinery continues. So to that end, in Part 5 coming up, we'll look directly at how custody, support, and state incentives to dismiss shared parenting and custody all transform men's ongoing struggles into predictable revenue streams for the divorce industrial complex.